to the Expert Speaker podcast. We are here with special guest, my dear friend, Pam Prior, author of Your First CFO. She was, in fact, my first CFO. She taught me how to bring my business to $1 million in revenue without working 10 times harder. More importantly, she taught me how I can responsibly invest my revenue in my business with such questions as, can I afford to hire someone? Can I afford to invest in this coaching program? So she's here to help us kick financial overwhelm to the curb. I know, speaking from experience as an entrepreneur, the one thing that keeps me up at night is worrying about my finances. And with one amazing tool she gave me called my financial forecast, I was actually able to see where the money's coming from, when the money's coming in, and how I get to that $1 million revenue. Pam has been an expert speaker client as well. So she was my CFO and I was her speaking coach. So Pam, why don't you share with us your journey out of being a Fortune 500 corporate CFO and into now one of the world's best coaches and CFOs for growing entrepreneurs?
Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to every time I talk to you, I learn something. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. I have my pen and notepad at the ready. So just the short version is I wanted to be an accountant from the time I was 7 years old, sitting behind my dad in his office at a tiny little table where he would hand papers back to me to be able to work on with things like a stapler and a scribble pen. And I kind of always wanted to grow up to be him. And what I did was took accounting in high school when it was still very new to take there and loved it, loved everything about it. So cutting a long story short, I grew up as an accountant, from accountant to a CFO in Fortune 50, actually at DuPont for 20 years, and had the amazing, awesome experience of having really good leaders 90% of the time. So what they taught me a lot about was that how you do what you do really well is just as important as what you do. And that got embedded in me from the very beginning of my career. So while I was in corporate, I always had this feeling that things could be done the right way, where people were first, profits were happening, and people were first, and clients were served, and the business thrived. But I never could really articulate that. I kind of felt trapped in the corporate quarter over quarter public earnings reporting and cutting people and restructuring and all that stuff that kind of, no matter how far I got in the company, it was still sort of there. And I could create a bubble inside where we could have a real fun, supported time, but I couldn't shatter it. And so a couple of times I was in between jobs and I was working with entrepreneurs, and I always called it, kind of waiting for my next real job, which I considered CFO in corporate. And sure enough, I got my what became my last real CFO job. And it was perfect on paper. It was exactly what I was looking for. The leadership team was in chaos. They needed somebody who could come in and really lead that leadership team and drive the finances and wake up the finance group and fix the profits and make finance fun and meaningful. You couldn't have written it better. Got the job, walked in the door, and within a month, I'm like, no, I'm done. I've loved my corporate career. Every single job I've ever had, I loved. And I was like, no, I'm done. So I committed to them that I'd stay for a year, get done what I'd committed to do, and then I had to go. And I left and said, I'm going to work with entrepreneurs now, and got amazingly lucky during an amazingly horrible time for my mother. Unfortunately, she broke her femur and was in the hospital. And a mutual friend of Majeed's and mine by the name of Angela Loria was on a podcast at 2 a.m. while my mother was happily hepped up on some wonderful morphine derivative. I was wide awake at 2 a.m. tapping my toe, listening to the podcast. And she healed well from that, by the way. So all's well. Angela's podcast was about writing a book. And it was about doing it differently. Like I had always assumed you had to self-publish, or you had to go, get recognized by the New York Times and pay $300,000 to get somebody to recognize your book. But she had this other way to do it. And I was interested. So I shot her an email in the middle of the night, because that's what she said at the end of the podcast, very much in line with how she teaches us to do things. Email me at this address if you want to know more. And I emailed, and I thought, well, I'll get some routine answer a day from now or whatever. Well, at 2:30 in the morning, I got an answer. And it was very specific to me. Like, it's, hey, your last name's Prior and your company's name's Priorities Group. I love that. We should have a chat. And I'm like, okay. And that sort of started everything. Everybody, most of the people that I've met in my entrepreneurial life now has spawned from that relationship. I actually keep this really weird kind of mind bubble diagram of it, so that everybody that I get build a meaningful relationship with now, I can trace them all the way back to whoever, down the line of people who introduced me. So I kind of do my gratitudes that way, at least twice or three times a week when I'm looking at who's on my calendar. And I learned through these entrepreneurs that business, yes, can be done the right way. And my soul just got lit on fire by these people. And I realized they've been so underserved with bookkeepers and accountants and taxes and all of those things that are so critical to making a business work. And that there were a number of reasons they were avoiding or scared of or overwhelmed by finances. And I decided to take all that awesome stuff that I learned in corporate, strip out all the bureaucracy, all of the, profit-focused, non-humane stuff, and make it something I could adapt to each and every entrepreneur that I worked with in a way that turned their business finances into something that really aligned with them and helped rocket start their business, like I did with Majeed. So that's as short of a story as I can make it, Majeed, but that's how I got here, loving what I do.
Love that. Awesome. Thank you, Pam. Let me just recap. So corporate, Fortune 500, CFO, in between jobs, getting a little taste of working with entrepreneurs, and then finally realizing the corporate space isn't for you. Late one night, she hears the voice of Angela Loria coming through a podcast. And what's interesting, Pam, is you heard her give a talk podcast. You followed her call to action email. She responded not with an automated thank you, insert name, but like an actually looked at your email, right? That relationship started. My path to Angela was I saw her on a stage in Long Beach, California, say some real smart stuff at Archangel, followed up with her, met with her, hired her to be my book coach. And so Pam published her book with Angela. I published my book with Angela, and Angela gave me probably the most valuable strategic insight, which is that when you communicate in your marketing, you do it to one person.
Yeah.
And when we write our books like it's a love letter to one person. And I took that principle and applied it to my speaking. So instead of saying I'm giving a speech and there's 100 people in the audience and I need to make sure that everybody gets something from this speech, instead I go, there's 100 people in this audience and one is my perfect client. And I'm going to write the perfect speech and deliver the perfect speech like a love letter to that one client, so that at the end of the speech, they're coming up to me and saying, I don't know if you have like a recorder in my brain, but I just feel like that speech was perfect for me. So Angela lives on in our strategy, how we do things around here. So Pam, before we get into what we can do as entrepreneurs to make finances fun and kick our overwhelm to the curb, I would love for you to share how you've been using speaking to grow your business.
So it's been primarily, and I think I actually have to say entirely, because even referrals come from speeches, has been entirely driven by my speaking work, which is why I love working with you, Majeed, because we just keep upping that game.
And what else have you tried? Have you done like Facebook ads?
So right now, as a matter of fact, still working on a funnel and Facebook ads that are basically anemic, to be totally honest with you, right? It's just anemic. I can't get it to work. But I know if I get up on a stage and if there are 100 people in that room and they're entrepreneurs, that 20 to 25 of them are going to resonate with this message, and that 5, 6, 7 of them are going to be people I develop relationships with.
So tell me a story about one speech that turned into a client. Give me an example.
Oh God. So there are so many examples, but I'll do one. Archangel also, I had spoken on the Archangel stage. This was actually in Toronto. And there were actually then turned into two clients. So there were two people. It's interesting. I got the nickname Hallway Pam because the way these speeches used to work was you'd give your speech and three other people would do speeches. And then there'd be breakout sections in the arena where people could come talk to you kind of in person. And I always made a joke because nobody ever came to the finance area. It was always the sexy marketing area or this, Majeed speaking area or, the fun kind of sexy stuff. And my little finance corner was always empty. But as I would be walking in the hallways during the event or going out, outside to eat lunch or whatever, inevitably 5, 10, 15 people would kind of grab me and go, "Hey, Pam, can I kind of talk to you about something personal here?" They'd pull me off to the side and we'd have basically a one-on-one about whatever financial issue or thought or question they had. So I got the nickname Hallway Pam because I never had anybody in my corner, but I couldn't walk through the halls without talking to what ended up being potential clients, but really neat people. And Majeed, two out of that one particular speech, two of those hallway clients, two very different businesses became clients for me. Because we were able to do exactly what they needed to do to get out of what they needed. And I did exactly what you said. My keynote at the time was directly addressed to one person. And I learned that from Angela in writing the book, which is directly written to one person. But the feedback I get on both is, wow, oh my God, that was really, you can do this? This opened my eyes.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's jump into your advice for entrepreneurs around finances.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to invite the people who are here with us to chat into the chat box your questions. I will share with you my shift in mindset. So when I started my business, I thought, work as hard as I can, make as much money as I can, spend as little money as I can, and that's the best I could possibly do. I mean, I can't work harder than as hard as I can, and I can't make more than as much as I can, and I can't spend less than as little as I can. So that's the strategy. And in those years, I was making like $60,000, if I'm lucky, working my tail off 7 days a week, doing all sorts of random stuff, no plan really. Had no idea what my taxes were going to be. Often at the end of the year, I'd add everything up, submit it to my accountant, and then I would go from having a positive balance in the bank to a negative balance in the bank because I just wasn't really budgeting for taxes. So then I got the services of Pam and everything got organized. And with a couple of spreadsheets, I knew exactly what to do. And ironically, I was working less when I had a plan, maybe not ironically, but and I started making way more money than before just because I had a plan. And so I think now she calls it the Profit Plan, which is a great name. I know at the time we were calling it a financial forecast because at the time I was only looking backwards and going, oh, so that's how much I made, or, oh, that's how much I spent. But I never had a budget and I never had a plan. So Pam, I'd love for you to share, like, what are some of the typical breakthroughs you see when you work with a client with their finances?
Yeah. So first of all, there are like 3 or 4 things that keep people from looking at their finances or from looking at them kind of sideways or just putting them off to the side. And what's really clear is that the entrepreneurs who actually make it are the ones who get a really good awareness of what's going on in their finances. And a couple of the biggest breakthroughs I get, the ones that I'm happiest about, are actually that very first one where they go from that awareness that they should be paying attention to it with sort of the gray cloud of I'm not, and I'm losing sleep, I don't know what I'm looking at, to when they step over and go, oh my gosh, yeah, I know how to deal with this. And the things between the awareness and the action, there are generally 4 barriers. And so helping them get through any one of these 4 barriers is what I really love. And 2 of them are psychological and 2 of them are very logistical. And all of them really have each one has a very simple solution. And yet this is the thing, these are the barriers that just keep people from kind of breaking through that getting a real understanding of what's going on. So I use the acronym SOFT, S-O-F-T. I'm not going to talk about them in that order, but I'll go pretty quickly through them. The 2 psychological barriers, one of them is shame. And I just want to take you through a quick exercise here. I want you to take a minute and think about your most embarrassing financial story. Get it in your head. I won't torture you long with it. I just want you to get it in your head. Now, forget the fact that I made you go through that. But what I want you to do is look at this screen and know that every single person on this screen just came up with some sort of financial story that they're not thrilled with. And I can pretty much promise you yours isn't the worst. Like, at least I can promise 12 of you that yours isn't the worst. And there is no such thing as worst. We all have and you've heard everybody talk about this on social media. We all have these money stories. We all have these things about money. There is nothing to be ashamed of, because if you're in a room, even at an event like an Archangel, where there's everybody from 5-figure startups to, 8-figure, what you would call successful entrepreneurs, and I've worked with all of them, everybody's got that embarrassing money story. Everybody does. So what I tell people is, let's just take the shame and put it aside for a minute, because it's just not something that we should be ashamed of. And then what we can eventually do is work on whatever the stories are that are driving that shame. And let's pull it out, eject it, get rid of it once and for all. So shame is a big block, Majeed, and it's with a lot of things. Shame stops us from doing a lot of things. But so it's probably the most important psychological barrier that we break through. The second one is fear. What I say about fear is there's a very easy solution to fear. So fear is really what we don't know, right? We fear what we don't know. Because if we open that door, we don't know what's on the other side. So our mind makes up all these things we should be scared of that could be there. Once we actually open the door and look at it and see if it's a tiger or a kitty cat or whatever, then our minds go from fear into action. The adrenaline kicks in and we do something about it. Like, say it is a tiger. Say we open that door up and we look at our finances and we go, holy cow, I have no cash and a billion bills to pay. At least at that point, you're looking at it and you know what it is and can switch out of fear and into action. And then there are all sorts of ways to deal with it. Not looking at it doesn't make it not be there. It just makes you be able to pretend it away, but that doesn't work. Because just like Eeyore in Christopher Robin, any Christopher Robin fans, right? That gray cloud's always there. It's there when you're sleeping. It's there when you're talking to a client trying to sell them in a sort of desperation. It's there when you're thinking about attending an event or getting the coaching you need or investing in your business. It's just always there. So how do we get rid of that fear? We look at the thing. And how do we look at the thing? It's exactly what Majeed said. It's this forecast. We do a forecast, and there's a very simple way to do a forecast. I'm glad to give you all a link to my website here where you can get a free, what's called a Profit Concierge kit that has this forecast model in it and a quick 5-minute video on how to use it. But for 15 minutes a week, you can build this line of sight for yourself into your next 12 weeks. And everybody can do it. I've used it with people who hate math, hate Excel, and they're just starting their businesses. And believe it or not, I used this in one of my 9-figure companies, because even though they were 9 figures of revenue, 300 or 400 million, they always bounced around zero cash flow because that's how much money was coming in and out so fast. So forecast takes care of that second one, fear. So shame, we're going to put on the shelf for a hot minute. Fear, we're going to combat with this forecast. The other two are kind of logistical, and it's time is one of them. Okay. So entrepreneurs, how much free time do we have in a day? Like none, right? So if somebody's going to put a piece of paper in your hand and tell you it's a financial report and you look at it and it makes no sense to you, the first thing you're going to do is take it and shove it in a drawer and say, I know I should pay attention to that, but I'll do it next month. And all of a sudden that drawer gets more and more and more full, and it turns into a box and it turns into a closet, and you've never actually looked at your finances. So my biggest thing I leave with you today is, if anybody just hands you a piece of paper with numbers on it, rip it up, throw it away, and tell them you need to talk to somebody else, because a sheet with numbers on it means nothing. So no wonder we don't have time to deal with it, right? Because we're looking at it, trying to figure something out that looks like Greek to us. Here's how you make your time worthwhile to invest in looking at your numbers. You put them in context, okay? And there are 2 contexts here that I want to talk about. There's lots, but we'll deal with these 2. One is over time. So if you've got somebody doing your books, or you have your books available right now and you got a bookkeeper, tell them that anytime they hand you a month's profit and loss statement, or any kind of statement of any kind, that you want to see all 12 months in a row on that one sheet of paper. And you will find now, when you look at that piece of paper, it's not just a paper full of numbers. It's a paper that's telling a story. You can say, oh, my sales go up here, they go down there. Oh, that's right, I changed my price here. Maybe I raised it too much. Oh, all of a sudden sales disappeared. That's when all my clients are on vacation. Or here's when I hired somebody, so that's why my profit went down. Once those numbers are in context and telling you a story, just like a speech, it tells a story. Now it's something you can make decisions based on. Now you can look at it and go, oh, all of my clients are on vacation in Disney World in February and March. So let me try using Disney in my advertisement. Or shoot, let me take vacation. They're not here anyway. Those kind of things. It tells the story. The second context really quickly is versus expectations. So instead of just seeing that I made $10, I spent $5, I had $5 left, let's go into the month going from this handy dandy forecast we've already put together, because you're going to do it. It's a piece of cake. And you can say, okay, this month I expect to make $12, spend $5 and have $7 left. Now, when you actually get your real numbers at the end of the month, you're not just looking at numbers. You're saying, okay, what happened here? I said I was going to make 7. I only made 5. Oh, that's that price raise again. Maybe I shouldn't have raised my price by 50 cents. Maybe I should have only raised it by 25. Or maybe I need to offer a little bit more to go along with this new higher price. Again, it's telling a story. It's giving you feedback you can use to actively make decisions in your business from not just your gut. Okay. So that's how we make good use of your time. Make sure anything you get is in context. So shame on the shelf, fear we're going to do a forecast, making good use of your time. We're going to make sure we're looking at things in context. And the last piece is overwhelm, because you're thinking about a number of things, but this often manifests itself as, I don't even know where to start. I don't know who to trust. This is my money we're talking about. How do I even know who to trust? I don't know even how to take the first step or how to ask the questions that need to be asked. I can't even deal with this. You're looking at the top of Mount Everest and you can't see the individual next step you need to take. So 3 things I'm going to suggest to you will get you a lot of information. First 3 big steps in dealing with overwhelm. First of all, if you have not separated out your business from your personal finances, do it. You don't have to set up a business to do it. You don't have to register in Canada or register in the States, but you can just set up a second personal bank account. But here's why you want to do this. There's a real psychological edge to this. Right now, or maybe not right now, I don't know where you guys all in your business, but where I am certainly in mine is I'm serving my business. I'm feeding money, time, energy into my business. Well, I want the day to come where the business is serving me money, time, and energy. And I want to be clear, very clear on when that switch happens. So it's really important that we separate these two and recognize that business is an entity that I want to feed my personal wealth. So separate it out. Other benefits you get from that is once it's separated out, you're all set up for the second step. Once you're using a separate credit card and a separate bank account for your business, you can now get one of these bookkeeping systems. They hook right up into it and they do all the work for you. Truthfully, there's no more of this, oh my God, it's the end of the year. To Majeed's point, I have to look at all my receipts. I have to figure out which is business, which is personal, put them in a pile, get them to my accountant. All of that goes away. And you don't even have to keep receipts anymore in Canada or the US because you can scan them. They'll go straight into the system, match up with the right charge, and boom, you've got your records forever. And now it's very easy to create those awesome reports that tell you your story in context. So that's the second thing to compact overall. Just separate. I actually call this the SOB method. It's separate your finances so you have personal and business. Organize them by getting a bookkeeping system and tying those into them. Very simple to do and very cost-effective tools out there. Xero, QuickBooks, Fresh Start. There's a whole bunch of them out there. The third thing is get a mental picture of your business model and how money flows through your business. So I think of it as a house. Okay. I've got a house here where I do my magic. I spend money out the front door so that I can bring things in to help me do the magic. I bring in people, I bring in tools, I bring in my education, I bring in pens and pencils, I bring in banners. That's the stuff I buy. What is all that stuff that I buy and where and how do I get it? And how much does it cost me? I bring that stuff into my house and then over my little cauldron, I do my magic and my team or the people I've brought in for my team do their magic and we create a thing, whatever it is that we sell. And we put that out the other door and collect money for it. So the flow of stuff is I get stuff in, I work with it, I make magic, I sell awesome things to people. The flow of money is in the opposite direction. I collect my money from the people I'm giving it to, hopefully a lot more than I'm spending to create the thing, just as a little side note. And then I spend some of it out here to pay those people and for the things that I need to make it. Know your business model, draw yourself that house and understand where your money's going. Do all of those things together. The forecast that you can go get, understanding your numbers in context, and the SOB method for Overwhelm, you will all of a sudden have a whole different feeling. One of those things is going to be your breakthrough to going, oh my God, I can do this in my business and I should. Look how much more informed my decisions are. So that was a very long answer to your question, Majeed, but that when people make that hop, that's the thing that fires me up. The rest is just technical spreadsheet stuff.
Okay, give us the acronyms one more time.
It is SOFT, S-O-F-T, and the S is for shame, the O is for overwhelm, the F is for fear, and the T is for time. And we solve for those each by shame. We put it on the shelf. We've all been there. The O, overwhelm, we solve it with the SOB method. Separate, organize, business model. Okay, separate your stuff, organize your stuff, know your business model. The F, which is fear, we just need a line of sight because once you can see what's happening, there's nothing to fear. So you have a forecast for that. You create your little 12-week forecast. And then the last thing is T, it's time. Make good use of your time by making sure that any numbers you're looking at are telling you a story, not just staring you in the face as numbers.
Good. All right. Larissa's asking, what bookkeeping system do you recommend?
I recommend either, and there are good and bad points about them. QuickBooks or Xero. QuickBooks is probably the more user-friendly, to be fair. It's a little bit more expensive, but not that much. But you can get the Simple Start QuickBooks for, I believe it's like $17 or $20 a month in the States and less than that in Canada. And literally it's as easy. They walk you through it. It's like attach your bank account, attach your credit card account, and then it shows you exactly what to do step by step. So you can do this without a bookkeeper.
Okay. You know, Pam, working with you felt like my initiation into being a business owner. I think prior to working with Pam, I was more like a side hustle, right? Just work, make money, and look at my bank account and go, can I afford it? Ooh, okay, right? And now I'm thinking proactively about tax strategies. I'm thinking proactively about, does it make sense to finance or pay in full? So I'd love to know if you see certain milestones in the development, like here's what we're focusing on when we're at 6 figures. Here's what we're focusing when we're at 7 figures, et cetera. Do you recognize milestones and common mistakes people make at each level?
Yeah. So it's different for everybody, but there's a pretty common trajectory, I think, for a lot of the people that I have worked with is a lot of started out as solopreneurs. So they're doing their own thing. They're doing all the things. They're the magician, they're the bookkeeper, they're like being an at-home mom. You're everything. You're the CEO, you're the CFO, you're CMO, the CTO, you're the C everything. And during that time, the focus, of course, is on getting revenue because you need to get revenue. Most of my folks are bootstrapping, which basically means you build your business from the money you make in your business. You don't have somebody investing in you. You don't have a ton of money you can throw into it. So a lot of the time, a lot of that initial time is how do we get revenue faster? And there are only 2 things that can drive revenue: how much you sell and how much you sell it for. So what are we doing there? And how much do we spend to get that revenue? So very, very focused on that until there's a money-making machine that's been kind of proven in its rawest form. Once you get to that point, the entrepreneur is usually exhausted. So the next question, the next step is who and how and when do I hire? So what we're doing is putting forecasts in place based on the engine that's been proven for these people, saying, okay, here's who you can afford to hire and when. And that's the next big step, is getting those people onboarded. Now, what often happens is here, and one of the fatal mistakes is that as you're getting people onboarded, you're still trying to do everything yourself. This is where the entrepreneur feels their loss of control. And learning how to delegate and learning how to do that properly, which includes not just giving responsibility, but giving authority over, and recognizing that it's going to be different than you did it. But the whole point is to get people around you who are better at things than you are. So you still have to move in this role of keeping all the pieces together, but not controlling them. Hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life in business. But, and for everybody, actually for all my clients, it's been the hardest thing. But then once they get there, it's about two things happen. One, it's how do I scale this now? I've created something, now I can grow it without spending a lot more on this sort of investment initial cost. How do I make it grow? And there are all sorts of ways to do that. But also here is where the question starts to come. And I start asking it of my clients is, look, what's in this for you? What do you want to get out of this thing now? Now that you're in the stage where you can grow this, do you want it to be a lifestyle business? Do you want it to be a revenue engine for you? Do you want it to create wealth that you can invest elsewhere? Do you want to stay active in it? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to give it to your employees? All of those questions start to come up, and we start working on making sure that the money's flowing in a way that's tax advantageous to everybody involved and getting invested in a way that keeps them really well diversified, with the goal of setting them up for life with a return on this business of theirs or whatever they invest in after the fact, so that they can stop working whenever they want to stop working, if they ever want to stop working, or they can start doing things they want to do that don't necessarily make money, but spend money or a gift of time. So those are kind of the four big stages I see.
Thank you. We have a question. Is it wise to keep your accounts in one bank or multiple banks?
That's a really, really good question. In the US, once you get above a $250,000 balance in a particular account, it's no longer insured by the federal government. So keeping your balances below 250 in any particular bank account is always a good idea. Now, some people choose to use multiple banks because then if you need a loan or a credit line, you've got multiple sources to go to. The flip side of that is if all of your stuff is with one bank, they might be more inclined to give you a larger credit line or better credit arrangements. That said, banking has become very institutional now. It's all formula driven for loans and for interest returns, and you can get a point or two better here or there over time. But over the long haul, it depends on your risk tolerance for being abused. The banks are so regulated now, though, it's very hard for them to abuse you anymore. Like the crisis that we had back here in the 80s, I think it was, has been almost over-regulated to compensate for it. So one bank is not a killer anymore like it used to be. Good question.
Pam, people who want to work with you, what does it look like?
So we have two different ways to work with us. One is actually, we're really thrilled about it because I've always worked one-on-one with entrepreneurs, either my team or myself, with the entrepreneur, where we do all of their work for them and have multiple meetings with them. Well, we just this year are launching our Done For You bookkeeping service, which for entry-level entrepreneurs, but it's not just bookkeeping. You get the advantage of a CFO, your first CFO, in a group setting, where we're going to be able to, for a much smaller monthly fee than it takes to work with us one-on-one, you're going to have a place for your Q&A. You're going to have access to me, to the team, and your bookkeeping will be done for you. The best way to find out about that is to go either DM me or email me. Majeed can give you my email number, or go to our profitconcierge.com website, and it talks about all the things that we do. So we work with people multiple ways.
And guys, when I worked with Pam, I had a bookkeeper and I had an accountant, and Pam taught me how to actually use them.
Right. Yeah. We don't try and sell you what you don't need. A lot of times it's just educating you on what you need to know when you talk to somebody. In fact, if any of you are in the market to get a bookkeeper and you just don't know where to start, go to go.profitconcierge.com. There's a free download of what to ask, how to interview your next bookkeeper, basically, to make sure you get the right person for you.
For me, what it did for me with my bookkeeper and my accountant is it changed the relationship from basically, I was just like, I just need to file my taxes. just take my receipts. I'll answer your questions and just help me pay my taxes, to actually feeling like they're on my team and feeling like I'm getting useful information that I could make decisions with. And what happened in my day-to-day experience is my stress went way down, because I was stressing about money. And now I see where it's coming from. I see how much I have. I know how long it's going to last me, all those things, instead of just constantly worrying about it. So it's hard to really quantify the value of that peace of mind. But as Pam was explaining, you bring that cloud of fear with you everywhere. You bring it to your sales calls, you bring it to your team, you bring it to your patients, to your clients. And for me, just knowing my numbers and knowing everything's good help me close more sales, help me be more present for clients, help me be more in my creative space when I'm giving speeches, when I'm creating speeches, and just day to day making life better and easier, because I just understood it. I didn't really understand it before. So I think that's a life-changing thing. So we may have time for one or two more questions, Pam. We've got some links being dropped here. Pam at prioritesllc.com. We have profitconcierge.com. We have go.profitconcierge.com for the free guide on how to hire a rockstar bookkeeper.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Pam. I have a quick question. So this past year, just before the close of 2021, I closed my LLC. And I'm going to start 2022 as a sole proprietor. And I did this for a number of reasons. But now the other thing that I also am going to start 2022 with is the model of private membership association. So it's more faith-based as a private health association. So my goal is to bring the clients through the private health association, operate on that model, and then, because it's more in the private domain. And then for the public domain right now, just operate as a sole proprietor. Down the road, I feel that the sole proprietor is probably going to have to get switched into another title or name. When is a good time to consider that? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the PMA model or the private membership association model.
I'm not familiar with the private membership association model, but what I'll say about the sole proprietorship, there are two sort of triggers that might make sense to start moving to an LLC or an LLC filing as an S Corp. The first is liability. As long as you're a sole proprietor, if there's anything you can get sued for as a sole proprietor, they can break through to your personal assets. So there's nothing to prevent somebody from suing you and walking away with your personal savings and assets. Whereas with an LLC, any kind of organization like that, LLC or S Corp, you are protected. They can sue the S Corp, they can sue the LLC, but they can't sue you. So this is more America than Canada. I don't think you guys are quite as suit happy as we are. But in the US, having that protection, and that's why it's called limited liability corporation, because it limits your liability in the case of anything, in the case of a bankruptcy, in the case of any kind of a suit. The second thing is there are tax advantages to the LLC, particularly filing as an S Corp, once you start to make significant money. And by significant money, I'd say if your net income or your money after expenses is starting to approach or exceed $100,000, $150,000 a year, I might start talking to your tax accountant about the right time to pull the trigger on turning it into an LLC or an S Corp.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I closed the LLC. I didn't have any assets that were left, and I just felt that the expense wasn't quite there for me to maintain it.
Yep.
So if I could save that a little bit and then down the road, consider it.
Absolutely understand. Yep.
Would business liability help to offset that liability that the LLC might have had?
It does help, but business insurance generally has a deductible and a ceiling. So if one of these people, jumps in and says, I'm suing you for $5 million, and your insurance company decides to settle on their premiums or their coverage worth is, $1 million or whatever, they can still continue to pursue you for the additional.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. And again, I will say I am not a lawyer, so none of that was advice. That was just my opinions on a couple things.
All right. Any other questions for Pam?
I have a question. At the beginning, I think you said something about 15 minutes, like 15 minutes a week or a day. Like I'm interested in the organizing part of the finances and like as opposed to
Awesome.
putting them aside. I'd love some tips on that.
Awesome. So first thing I said, the 15 minutes a week was this forecast, this 12-week rolling forecast, which sounds intimidating as hell, but it's really easy. You basically need three things. You need yourself in 15 minutes and either a glass of wine or tea, whichever your preference is. You need the model that you're going to now have the link to when you go to profitconcierge.com. Look for the, I think it's called it's the accessories tab or the tools tab, and there's a profit kit in there. That's what you want to download. Very easy instructional video there. And you need your most recent bank statement or your online bank information only for your checking account. That's it. Don't need your credit card. Don't need anything else. Just your checking account for your business. And now the first week you do it, I will be honest, it'll probably take you half an hour. But after that, it's once a week, 15 minutes. And you will get so much insight in that 15 minutes that number one, it'll make your next 12 weeks a lot clearer. And number two, I have told everybody who does this exercise, if you do this for 12 weeks, you will find savings in your business or you will figure out how to change your pricing. But you're going to make more per week at the end of this 12-week process than when you started if you're faithful to it for 12 weeks. I have actually offered a gift card, $100 Amazon gift card to anybody who proves to me they did it for 12 weeks and didn't save or earn at least $100 doing it. Been doing this for 5 years. I've never paid it out. It's impossible to get this close to your business and not get something really good to save out of. So that's that thing. For the overwhelm piece, what I'd suggest is if your accounts are already separated and you're keeping your business stuff separate, that's really, really good. The next thing I would do is get a bookkeeping system and just plug those bank accounts and the credit cards into it and let it walk you through how to categorize things. Because once you do that, Peggy, the cool thing is now you've got that 12-month storytelling look. Because you can see, here's what I spent on travel. Here's what I spent on marketing. Here's what I spent on Majeed. Here's what I spent. Here's what I earned in each of my things. And you start to think very differently about each of the levers that moves each of those things. And you start to look at your pricing. You start to look at your marketing. How can I get to more people for less money? You know, if I give a speech, how many people can I expect will follow up with me? You can start to really learn those things about your business and then focus your time on the ones that are going to generate the most money for you. So I just keep pouring money down this funnel hole. Or should I go to a stage where I know I'm going to walk away with 5 clients? Within 6 months, I'll have 5 clients from that stage. And it's clearly more valuable for me to go spend an hour on a stage or 45 minutes on a stage, probably have other peripheral benefits because I'm meeting a lot of people, I'm out and about, than, you know, just spending hours and hours trying to figure out how to make a funnel work. Although I am doing both because I'm stubborn. I don't know that it's the wisest choice. And I can now know that it's not the wisest choice because I look at my forecast.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You bet.
Any other questions for Pam?
I actually have a quick question about organization as well. You had mentioned bringing the receipts in. Any suggestions about how to keep track of receipts? Because that's where I oftentimes fall off the wagon.
You got that wallet stuffed with the receipts?
Yeah. The folder, everything just kind of gets dumped into the folder. I do already have the QuickBooks and keeping track of that type of thing. But as far as managing the receipts and some of that tactical stuff, if you have any tips on that, I'd appreciate it.
I totally do, because I had to do this myself. And it's one of those habits like going for a walk every day that'll hurt you for the first week or two. But if you can get past that first week or two, you're going to love this. So you've got QuickBooks on your handheld. You can download a QuickBooks app. Okay, so that's thing number one. Do that. Then you'll log on to that QuickBooks app with your same QuickBooks logon that you have. And on that app, there's a little button called Receipts. And all you have to do is take your phone with you, which is probably with you everywhere you go. And I never put a receipt in my wallet again. I set myself a goal of never putting a receipt in my wallet. So wherever I am, I open up QuickBooks, I take that snapshot, hit save. Here's the really cool thing. What that receipt now does is it uploads into QuickBooks. It does what's called an OCR scan of it and pulls the vendor name, the amount, if it's legible, the vendor name, the amount, blah, blah, blah. And it says, next time you go to do your books, it'll say, hey, we found this receipt. Does that go with this transaction? You say yes, it matches up and you're done. Now, in some cases where the receipt's not really legible or it's too late to pick up or whatever, you can still go look at all those receipts and go, oh, you thought it was $2.28. It's $2.38. Let me make that fix. And then it'll match up. So, and as long as I keep that rule, which is I don't put a receipt in my purse anymore, ever, it's all done because of that little app. I'm glad you asked that question because that feature makes me so happy.
Wonderful tip. Thank you.
You bet.
So email Pam, go get her resources at profitconcierge.com. Brilliant as always, Pam. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
This was a blast, you guys. Thanks so much for listening. Hanging in for Talks About Your Finances sets you apart from every other entrepreneur out there. I got to tell you.
Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.